2 years ago, our next guest was put in charge of reforming Canada's military culture, a role created after allegations of sexual misconduct implicated officers at the highest level of the Canadian Forces. And it is not just sexual misconduct that she's now looking into, but also allegations of misogyny and racism. And to discuss the challenge at hand, we're now joined by Lieutenant General Jennie Carignan, Chief of Professional Conduct and Culture at the Canadian Armed Forces. General, thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, Michael. Glad to be here.
Listen, first and foremost, I want to talk about just how widespread misogyny and racism is in the armed forces. 2 years into the job, are you able to answer that question?
So I think what we are currently doing in terms of culture and professional conduct is having a holistic look at what actually is at the root causes of misconducts. We understand that misconduct is a symptom, and strictly going after misconduct is not necessarily the way to deliver the climate and environment free of discrimination, misogyny, or hateful conduct. So really, they are taking a whole different approach this time around.
So a different approach. What was it then within military culture that allowed these things to go unchallenged?
So what we have seen is we have actually gone out in the first year of my mandate to directly consult. So 9,000 members plus of the defense team, public service, military, reservists, did respond to our consultations. And what we wanted to identify is how does our culture work? What has been absolutely key to our finding is that we found that our culture is informed by four pillars. The first one is leadership. The second one is teamwork. The third one is service before self. And the fourth one is identity. So what we found was that nothing is bad everywhere all the time. It is cyclical. And what we have found was that those pillars are neither good nor bad. It is always in the way they are expressed. So leadership, for example, is a key pillar that does inform our culture, and that immediately puts us on the track of prioritizing our efforts in how we are developing leaders, how we are developing inclusive leaders, which in turn is going to affect the way we express leadership in the workplace.
Okay, let's dig into that. How are you going to train leaders differently now than perhaps in the past? I think when you talk about a military leader, you're thinking about military strategic competency. What else are you going to add into that formula?
What we want to aim for is character development. So technical competencies, of course, is important, but we really want to aim on the character piece, because character is what informs judgment. So what does that mean in concrete terms is that we are focusing our efforts as a priority in the basic level schools and how we deliver training at the basic level and how we socialize new members in the forces. And the second aspect is in terms of leadership development. We are aiming towards initially develop inclusive behaviors. So started last year, we have now we are evaluating our leaders on inclusive behaviors. And this past year was the first year where we are actually debriefing people in that space and then developing them towards that via coaching programs, via leadership support teams, and other tools to enable that change to happen.
Now, I know one concrete attempt, you talk about people being essentially ingratiated into the military culture, and I know one attempt to address at least one problem, that of sexual assault, that military leaders were thinking of limiting the amount of alcohol members can consume during certain events. Does the military have a drinking problem? Is this what you're trying to address there?
So the military doesn't exist in a vacuum. We are existing as part of our society, and as we all know, alcohol has been part of our social environments. So I think the key word here is adapting to our context, and the military has adapted their drinking habits and postures and approaches over the past many years. As an example, drinking is definitely restricted at the various activities that we do organize, and it has been so for the past 30 years.
And yet the military was talking about the tie between drinking and sexual assault in a number of the cases that have kind of come up within Canadian forces.
So there is a link between sexual misconduct and alcohol, and it's an important factor to consider for commanders who are overseeing the work and how people are operating and working together. So it is broader than alcohol. There are many more factors that are involved, such as age, such as power relations between ranks, power dynamics, as well as location as to where those the incidents actually happen. So many more factors are involved into sexual misconduct, of which one we do observe a trend, which is why we do enable commanders with those data so that they can make the appropriate decisions and actually design events with that in mind.
So why not just ban alcohol?
Because it would not be appropriate in some instances. So as we all know, military members work and live together, which is a bit of a difference than what we normally encounter. So when your home is on the base, it would be inappropriate, and again, a one-size-fits-all would not be appropriate for that. And frankly, the vast majority of our military members who we entrust in serving their countries do actually drink responsibly and consume alcohol in a very responsible manner. So again, a one-size-fits-all would not be appropriate. But I have to reemphasize that point that currently alcohol is restricted on the many events or many things that we do, such as operations, exercises, formal events that we organize, like that the alcohol consumption is definitely restricted, and it has been for many years.
General, thank you for the time.
Thank you so much, Michael.